Thank you, Gerald. When Gerald asked me to present today, the first question was, present what? And the understanding that developed was sort of, as Gerald said, about how it is that systems thinking world managed to evolve to wherever it is, which led to the second question is, where is it? So I thought I'd begin and tell you a story of the set of serendipitous events that sort of led to things being where they are at the moment. And it began in the mid 70s. This is not really a fairy tale, but you may think so, with an unexpected reading of Stafford Beer's Platform for Change, which it wasn't a planned reading. It was a required text for a course that I was taking, which was really a mind-altering experience that led to about 15 years of essentially wandering in the desert, trying to figure out, what does all this mean? And then about 1990, Sengi's The Fifth Discipline showed up, along with an article in the Scientific American about the announcement of Stella, the modeling simulation software for the Mac. And after having written simulation programs in GPSS on punch cards for an IBM 360, Stella was a godsend. And at the same time, the Systems Thinker started to be published, and Rick Karsh started moderating the Learning Org list. And all of those things happened sort of at the same time within a couple of months of each other. And it sort of led to several years of interactions that were just, really opened up in terms of an understanding of how all this stuff connected together. And then at the same time, HTML showed up, which seemed to be a fascinating thing to think about. And simply trying to figure out how to create a web page led to a website called systemsthinking.org, which ended up being, 100 articles or so on the web about systems thinking, though all things sort of come to an end, and it got archived because it was time to retire. It was over. I've had enough of this. Though there are some things that simply won't leave you alone. So shortly after archiving systems-thinking.org, another website was started called The First Discipline, because there was a thought that Sengi titled his book wrong, and it should have been The First Discipline as opposed to The Fifth Discipline. Though, fortunately, that effort didn't last long because it was just going in the wrong direction. And then all of a sudden in about 2009, trying to breathe life into a number of discussion groups that seemed a lot like trying to graft new limbs on cadavers, and the people that were running the discussion groups beginning to think I was Frankenstein's monster. Somebody said something about, well, why aren't you on LinkedIn so that I can talk to you? Which resulted in a LinkedIn account, which resulted in a discussion group called Systems Thinking World, which resulted in a nonprofit organization called Systems Thinking World, Inc., which led to a website called systemswiki.org. And all of these things happened in a short span of just a couple of months. So it seems like punctuated equilibrium, so that things sort of go along at an even keel for a period of time, and then all of a sudden it explodes and a whole bunch of new things appear. And so Systems Thinking World was established essentially by a collection of people who believe that a systemic perspective is the most appropriate way to look at and understand situations, to figure out best ways to deal with them. So, and to develop and share our understanding to help other people benefit from and employ a systemic perspective. So we developed a bunch of courses in Moodle, and there was about 1,000 people that signed up for those. So the Moodle environment just felt constrained, and it just didn't feel right. So we abandoned that, and along about the same time that this was going on, there was a challenge issued to all of the modeling and simulation software developers, because of the way that things had developed in the web environment, to say, when are you people going to get together and develop an environment where we can develop and share models readily over the network without having to worry about do the people that we want to share them with have the software to run the models with, as opposed to sending them papers on dead trees with pictures of models that you couldn't interact with. Shortly after that was issued, Scott Fort Monroe, who happened to be in Poland on a Fulbright scholarship, showed up and said, "Boy, have I got a deal for you," which kicked off a 5-year collaboration of him developing software and me figuring out what to do with it. So InsightMaker is a web-based multi-user modeling and simulation environment, which today actually, from the perspective of a lot of people, rivals Stella, I think, BenSim, and PowerSim. And because of what we could do with InsightMaker, we started doing a whole series of webinars on systemic perspective, and there were a couple of dozen of them done in 2012. And that led to the publishing of a series of books called Systemic Perspective Series, and they were published on Amazon, but that only lived for, I don't know, 8 to 10 months, and the concepts evolved. I mean, they were essentially out of date by the time that we actually got them put together and published. And then we ran into Khan Academy, and the model that Sal uses in terms of creating these short 5 to 10 minute videos, which are nuggets of learning and understanding that you can thread together to provide a sequence that people can digest sort of at their own pace, but don't have to spend a long period of time at any given time to develop that understanding, seemed to overcome a lot of the problems that we had developing books or developing webinars. I mean, a 1-hour webinar is not enough to present what you want to present, and people living in continually modifying priorities and schedules defined by somebody else. For a person to attend a half a dozen webinars in a series is next to impossible. So the Khan Academy model was just really fascinating. So we started to develop this concept, which we called 1 + 1 =, which was simply a set of short 5 to 10 minute videos about various systems thinking concepts, with the idea that we could wire them together into learning threads. And so that we ended up with a YouTube channel where we put all these videos, and in the process of doing that, in the beginning of February of last year, Scott Fort Monroe was sort of at a lull in development of InsightMaker and trying to figure out something interesting to do. So he decided that he really wanted to write a book. So I collaborated with him on developing a book called Beyond Connecting the Dots. We launched it as a Kickstarter project. We had 400 sponsors, and I expect that there are a number of our sponsors in the audience here today. And people told us that we were absolutely crazy. How can you write a book with 400 sponsors? Like anything else, there was only about 20 of those sponsors who were actively engaged in continually reviewing the content as it was written day after day. And the work actually turned out far better than we expected because of that interaction. And what was produced was an app that you could run on a PC or a Mac, and there's a web version, and you interact with it, and it looks and feels like an ebook until you get to a certain point and you click on a link, and you end up right inside of either a qualitative or a quantitative model developed in InsightMaker. And you don't even have to be connected to the web to do that, because Scott figured out how to embed the entire InsightMaker simulation environment inside of the ebook. So it's just, though the dozen pieces of software that he had to integrate to make this work, simply told, and the amount of effort that one has to go through to produce a revised version of this piece of work, just said it's the wrong approach. I mean, it was marvelous that it actually worked, but it wasn't a model to be replicated going forward. what really seemed to make sense based upon thinking about what Khan Academy was doing was a set of learning threads that were more like a subway map, so that there were certain concepts that one would learn using these short pieces that were threaded together. So the attempt was done to build this in a piece of software called the Brain, for which there's been a 17-year love-hate relationship. And when they went from version 7 to version 8 and we lost 6 months worth of work, we said never again. So we relegated them to Never Never Land. And just at the time that that happened, the magnificent Moore brothers showed up with something called Kumu. And Kumu is being developed as a relationship mapping environment on steroids, not a simulation environment, but a mapping environment, and not an environment that does mind maps, which are essentially hierarchical, spread out like a spider web. It's really a network metaphor that allowed us to build the learning maps like subway maps. So we've been working with the Kumu developers for the last 6 months, and in the beginning of May we introduced a systems thinking certification program based on Kumu, and we thought 40 or 50 people showed up, but 250 people signed up for it. It's going to turn out like all the other MOOCs. The completion rate is going to be about 4%. So that's sort of expected, but what we figured out how to do in the context of Kumu was just fascinating, and things are still evolving. So this is how sort of systems thinking world got to the point where it is today. And in terms of the discussion group itself on LinkedIn, Gerald said about 18 or 19,000 members. People always ask about how big is the discussion group. Well, there's really a more relevant question, and that is the discussion group actually engaged in meaningful conversation in accomplishing something, or is it just a lot of people? If you look at this particular discussion group, which is the Consultants Network, which has about 340,000 members, for the particular week that I pulled the data for, they had far more new posts than they actually had exchanges between the members. There's a lot of people posting stuff, but nobody's talking to each other. The ratios are abysmal. Though if you look at the TED group, which is about 400,000 members, you notice that there are far fewer new items initiated in the group and a lot more exchanges amongst the members. And you can tell by looking at the orange curve is new discussions and the blue curve are interactions. The TED group is very highly moderated so that they take out the trash on an ongoing basis, and that promotes a good set of interactions. For Systems Thinking World, for that same week, there were 19 new things initiated and 759 exchanges between the participants. Of course, the group is only 19,000 members, and we don't think that we can maintain this level of interaction as it continues to grow, though we continue to advise people that it's available there to interact, and you have to be selective about which threads you really want to interact with, because it can actually be extremely you can just be overwhelmed by it, because there are 40 or 50 discussions going on simultaneously and you just can't keep up with all of them. So you figure out which ones are meaningful and you pursue the ones that are meaningful. So where is it that Systems Thinking World is today? Well, it's an agglomeration of stuff. It's people who, as I said, believe that a systemic perspective is the best way to look at and understand things, even though we can't seem to come to a collective agreement on a definition for systems thinking. We sort of have a collective awareness that, you know, it's about understanding relationships and the implications of those relationships. For the myriad of definitions that people come up with, it really distills down to understanding relationships and the implication of them. So systems thinking world is periodically from time to time people say, well, we really ought to establish an organization and have membership and all that kind of stuff, and we send them to Never Never Land also. The group continues to interact based upon the value that it creates for those who are interacting. There's no formal organization structure in place. The fact that there's a nonprofit organization is just because some things to support the interactions have to be paid for, and when the organization needs money, it goes out and asks the group, and they donate money, and things continue on. So it's a discussion group. We look for we have a preference for web-based multi-user utilities that provide collaborative development of understanding, so that we've evolved the systems thinking certification program. I should have known better. I spent a number of years in doing knowledge management consulting for organizations who thought that knowledge management was the objective, till I finally wrote a paper called Knowledge Management by Humbug, and realized that knowledge management was only important to the extent that it actually enabled you to accomplish something meaningful. Systems thinking is the same thing. Systems thinking is not the objective. To the extent that it enables you to do something meaningful, then it's a set of tools in the toolbox that you use. So Insight Maker, the web-based environment that Scott developed, which is completely free, not free for a reduced set of capabilities, but actually completely free, because we believe that it needs to be there and needs to be free. The difficulty that we have is that people sort of, don't pay as much attention to it as we would like them to, because they figure if it's free, it can't be very good. Well, there's actually 26,000 registered users that disagree with that point of view. There's a set of learning resources that have been put together. The YouTube channel has got a little over 400 videos about various aspects of systems thinking. There's a Twitter feed that goes on with all the stuff that's posted. The model library, which is a set of pointers to all of the different places we think that people have stored models, and there's about 17,000 models in Insight Maker at the moment. Some of them are really, really good, and some of them are sludge at the bottom. And then it's also this wiki called systemswiki.org, which is in the process of migrating into the Kumu environment as we get a chance to do it. So I told you that we evolved the systems thinking certification program. What the Kumu environment feels like, which is just a delight to work with. This is the Enabling a Better Tomorrow program. It's put together like a metro map. A person comes in here, they watch a video about the environment and how to interact with it. They come down and they say, all right, I want to pursue this particular segment of the content. It opens, it focuses that segment. They walk through it from point to point on the different points or segments. They get to read content, they get to watch videos, they get to interact with Insight Maker models or Kumu models, depending upon what was put together. And when they finally get to the end of the sequence, there's a summary, and it also asks the participants to share their perspectives with the other people that are interacting with the content, so that it provides an environment for structured learning threads to learn various and sundry different concepts associated with systems thinking, and to actually develop qualitative and quantitative models in Insight Maker and in Kumu, and a process we call Enabling a Better Tomorrow, which actually engages all of the stakeholders that have a part to play in the situation being the way it is today and the way that it could be tomorrow. So this was just rolled out on Saturday, and we're with the response that we had to the certification program, we're really looking forward. I mean, the people that are in the certification program that are engaged, some of them are developing some really amazing stuff, and all of the content that they develop and submit all gets reviewed and it is shared by all of the people participating in the program. So that's where that is. And in the sense of, in all of Apple's presentations, there was always one more thing. Well, we have one more thing called the Systems Thinking, Modeling, and Simulation News, which is actually overcomes all of the bitches that people have had about LinkedIn for years, and the fact that LinkedIn at the moment is amazingly screwed up. Scott Fort Monroe put this well, there's a site called called Hacker News that Scott interacts with on an ongoing basis, and he finds very beneficial. So he said, well, maybe the systems community could use something similar to this. So he put this together last week, and he sent me an email on Friday and said, look at this, what do you think? And we tinkered around with it for a while and made a bunch of changes, and we actually released it on Saturday. It's an environment where it's by invitation only. When you're invited, once you're invited, you can submit content to the environment. When you submit a story, it can be via a pointer to a URL someplace or an actual question or discussion, and there are a set of tags that you can tag the content with when you submit it. Once you submit it, all the participants can interact with it, and they get to upvote and downvote the content so that that which they perceive to be meaningful bubbles to the top, and they also get to comment on the content, and it actually does multi-threaded discussions, which people have complained about not having in other environments for a long time. So that and participants can also upvote and downvote the comments, so the appropriate comments bubble to the top of the list. So in 5 days, we have about 70 users in this environment. And once a person becomes a user, they're in a position to invite other users to the environment. I think this is an exciting addition because I think it's a platform that we can use to provide a level of synergy across all of the various and sundry systems communities, because this does not have the Systems Thinking World label on it. It says Systems Thinking, Modeling, and Simulation News. It says Modeling and Simulation because that's the environment that Scott hails from primarily. And it's available. So if anybody wants access to it, send me an email, and I'll set you up with an account. It only works if people submit content, upvote and downvote content, and invite other people to participate. I mean, the Hacker News has thousands of members. This could also, and we're looking forward to how it evolves. So that's sort of what I had to offer. Yeah, questions?
Sure. Okay, we can move to questions. Shall we put the light on? We've got the first question.
Spellbinding, isn't it?
back.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, we're going to need to get
Like this.
mobile phone to you.
No, wait.
Wait, we need to get a mobile phone to you.
So what we need to do is
so
put this here so that everybody can hear him as well. Watch this. Just one moment, we're getting this thing. So it'll be mobile, and he'll be able to hear everything. Look at that. We'll do it like this. That's great. Okay, so now you speak. Gene, can you hear?
Yes?
And you can hear Gene? Now,
Okay.
you just speak into here.
Hello, Jane. How are you
Hello?
going? I was in the LinkedIn discussion when you were setting up the book project, you know, with the volunteers. We didn't quite get in there. We had a group of students who were interested. We didn't quite manage to pull it all together in time. But I wanted to know if there was some other way we could develop or continue to do that development of that book with the iPad and the prototypes and connecting that to the field work where we could set up that environment. Would that work? And the application that you said that was developed on Saturday, this last one.
Well, okay. So if we were to go back last February and start again, and if Kumu was available, we would develop it in Kumu, not the way that we did. I mean, Kumu was just announced this year on Valentine's Day, and Kumu adopts the same model as Prezi does. Accounts on Kumu are free, and you can develop all of the public models that you want to for free. If you want to develop a private model, you got to pay for it. All right?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and the price is not outrageous. I mean, if you're going to develop a private model because it has corporate trade secrets or something in it, I mean, you know, it's if it's creating value for it, you probably ought to pay to use it. So, you know, I would first look to see if I could integrate the kind of thing that I was trying to develop into the Kumu environment. I'm fascinated by Kumu because a person can become productive in the Kumu environment in 10 minutes to begin to develop a relationship map. After 6 months, I'm still discovering things that we can do in this environment. It is just amazing.
Okay, that's great. I'll let them know and we'll have another go.
And you know, if you want to talk some more, send me an email. We'll chat. We'll do Skype sessions. We'll do whatever.
Thanks, Jane.
Welcome.
So can we have people stand in like the stairwell so Gene can see you as you ask him? So I'm going to bring you over here. And then, where are we? There we are.
Yes.
See? Okay, here we are. All right. You just speak right into there.
Hi, Gene. Sue Gabriel here.
Hi, Sue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Is that Kumu spelled K-U-M-U?
Kumu. Go to kumu.io.
.io. Okay.
Yes. Oh, and FYI, this presentation is being recorded and it'll be published on YouTube within 30 minutes after I'm finished. And all of the links for all of the pieces that were demonstrated will be in the About section of the video.
Oh, that's wonderful. And can I upload a whole page, or does it have to be text?
For
Can
Kumu?
I upload a picture?
In Kumu?
Yeah, for Kumu.
You can embed pictures by reference in Kumu. You don't actually load things into Kumu. And because we had the same problem with Insight Maker, all of the images that you saw here, all of those images are simply references to those images that reside somewhere else on the web. Because the content on the web is constantly changing, we'd go back to a model 3 months later and find out there were 3 of the images that weren't there anymore because somebody changed the web pages. So we went and found this utility called Cloudinary.
Cloud?
Yeah, the link will be in the video, but I'll show you that. And Cloudinary is another utility on the web that's specifically designed for managing images, and it's also free up until a large amount of bandwidth and number of images and whatever, so that we now have a library of images. And when we build Insight Maker models and Kumu models, we references the images out of the Cloudinary library.
I see. Well,
Okay.
so I can't draw my. Thank you. And I can't draw my own images then.
Well, you can draw images in anything you want to and store them in Cloudinary and then reference them.
Okay.
In Kumu, all of Kumu Kumu is an environment where there is a map, and for every element on the map, there is a profile page. There are profile pages for the elements, for the connections, and for the labels, so that, and the profile pages are all done in Markdown format, so that there's a level of formatting that you can do in the pages, and you can then refer to other things such as videos, URLs, images that you want to include, and this one.
Wow.
And this is Kumu and Kumu. This is a user's guide that I built of starting and building content in Kumu, and it's all done in Kumu.
Thank you. Thank you, Gene. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Gerald, can I ask one quick question? Gene, can you hear me?
Yes?
Hi, Janet Singer here.
I thought it was you, Janet.
Yeah. I would like to add my voice to encouraging you to continue with what you accomplished with the app and bringing people together in a collaborative development project. It was very rewarding, and so I hope you have the energy to go on to another iteration.
Well, I appreciate you and the other 400 people putting up with us for 9 months.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Gene. We're
Okay.
going to sign off now.
Take care, all.